Okay, hi everyone. Welcome to Unit Masters, Cohort 6. We are now in week 3 of our program, and today's focus topic of learning and studying is decentralized autonomous organizations and how actually human-based or human-centric systems can come to consensus, and what is actually the latest and greatest that is happening in the market. We know that currently you hear the term DAO everywhere when you look into researching cryptocurrency, but now we have an expert who's been there for a few years and has shaped certain understandings of the ecosystem. And it would be great just to also get your help in contextualizing what is happening, what is buzz, what is actually already happening, and what will be the future. Thanks very much for sharing your precious time and insights with us, Julio.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Happy to be here and share with you and everyone on the Unit Masters. Yeah, I am, being on this journey from learning blockchain for like maybe since 2016, I guess. I worked on the Brazilian Stock Exchange for 8 years, and I was in the innovations lab there, architecture and innovation. And that's where I learned about blockchain first. So I have more like 20 years of technology experience developing and also doing architecture for systems, decentralized distributed systems as well. And there I learned about Bitcoin, Ethereum, and all the different flavors of blockchains and how they work. I was in the first proof of concept by the exchange. So this was 2017, yeah, I guess. And then studying the many possibilities and different blockchains, I came across one that was called Holochain. And that's why actually I got my nickname like Julio Holon, because I started the Brazilian Holochain community back in 2017. And it was a very different kind of blockchain. We say it's the kind of fourth generation blockchain because it doesn't even have consensus anymore. So it's very a very different architecture. It's agent based. But let's not talk too much about Holochain now. Just to mention my story and how I got to learning blockchain. And then I started in 2018. I decided to leave the exchange and start my own kind of solo career and doing consultancy and developing. I was developing my own kind of business idea, like an app for managing collaborative houses and housing. It was called Holo House, by the way. I always have the Holo in everything I do. So the Holo House was a project to create a system to allow people to manage collaborative houses and places where you can live and work. And it had a currency. Each house could have their own currency or use the network currency if they wanted. So, and then it was a nice success. We got some experiment running in Rio, here in Brazil. It ran for like 8 months, and we created a currency. Actually, for that proof of concept, we weren't still using the blockchain. We were doing some local currency tests first, and doing the decision making as well. It was very key for this. And so I started studying holacracy and collaborative decision making. So in a way that you don't need a kind of a boss figure that's taking all the decisions, So that's became a passion for me as well to kind of study self-organization. I studied the Reinventing Organizations book by Frederic Laloux. So it's a very deep inspiration for me. And yeah, I did a few courses on that, started learning deeply how to facilitate self-organization in organizations as well, and especially in these houses I was trying to build, but then also in other organizations as well. And then I was like this kind of software developer, but also facilitator. That's what I like to call myself. And yeah, and that's and last year I came across Seeds in Haifa, and I was doing some currency design courses back then in August, and I came across the many different interesting currencies that were emerging, and I found Seeds, which got a lot of my attention. And the thing that I really liked about Seeds was the governance behind the currency. So because just doing a currency, anyone can do a currency, right? But how can you actually create a currency that allows people to participate really in how the currency is distributed and how people are using the resources? Because that, I think that's the key to for the humanity to kind of transcend to this next level. How do we share resources collaboratively without needing someone that's kind of in charge to taking all the decisions for us? And you know, this kind of pyramidal societies that we have, patriarchal societies, where we have some very few people on top of the pyramid that takes most of the funds, while everyone on the bottom, most of the people on the bottom get almost nothing. So, and then Seeds was all about doing regenerative economics, and I really liked the way it was being proposed. And it was very impressive because it was kind of the most complex smart contracts set that I ever saw. I mean, it has almost like, I think it's 30 different contracts already, and they have many, many lines of code implementing how the Seeds ecosystem works and how for you to become a citizen in Seeds and actually join a constitution. And then you have the voice to vote on this changes to this constitution and to vote on how to allocate the Seeds resources to the many regenerative projects. So it was really impressive. And I got deep into the ecosystem, and I joined Haifa last year. And I was very intrigued because they used a DAO to manage the organization. Their inborn DAO was called a Distributed Human Organization. Actually, it was not a DAO; it was a DHO or a DO. We call it DO, so it's really nice. And I can share some links there. People are asking in the chat. So Seeds web address is joinseeds.earth. I'm going to share the link here. And the Haifa do actually joinseeds.com or joinseeds.earth. So yeah, people are, thank you, Ip, for sharing. Yeah, that's it. And Haifa, the DHO actually URL is this one. Thank you. Yeah, so I was marveled because the DHO actually was fully transparent. I could just log in, even as a guest. You can log in as a guest right now and see what's going on. What is the treasury like? What are the projects that are being currently voted? So the transparency level is very very beautiful, because you can see how much people get monthly. You can see how much reserves we have, which projects are being voted. So it's a very different way of working in an organization. We actually don't need this boss figure. We kind of do this decision making on our own. So we organize. The difference between a regular DAO, and by the way, I don't know, I'm getting ahead of myself. I don't know if we have talked about the DAO concept, maybe. Yeah, okay. So yeah, so the DHO is a different kind of DAO. But what is a DAO again? Anyway, most people already heard about DAOs these days, but it's a distributed or decentralized autonomous organization. So it's basically, it's an organization on the blockchain for investors or participants. When you are a participant or investor, you get tokens that represent your ownership in this organization. And sometimes you have voice tokens as well, like they are uh, the measure of your voice in the organization, how much you can vote for the proposals. Because this DAO organization works like that. There is a kind of a fund in the blockchain measured by tokens, and you can allocate this fund. Anyone of the founders or the investors can propose a project to use these funds. And this proposal is also recorded on the blockchain. And then all the other participants or investors, they just vote. And if the project has enough support, enough votes, the project is approved and the funds are immediately transferred. It doesn't have to go through any human beings for that. So it's totally trustless and decentralized. So you don't need a kind of a treasury, someone that's holding the funds. So that's the key difference. Basically, that's what a DAO is. The first DAO was called DAO, was founded on Ethereum, and it was quite like a success, but also quite a failure, because immediately it got a lot of attention. A lot of investors came in. Millions of dollars were bought in currency for that fund. But there was a bug in the contracts, and a hacker managed to siphon 63 million US dollars from in tokens from the DAO. And then it was major, everyone was super scared about, oh, what's this? So, and then the DAO was kind of closed, the first one after this incident. And that even actually spawned the first, one of the, I think was the second major fork on Ethereum, I think was to the Homestead version of Ethereum. And I may be wrong there, but actually it was a major fork to revert this theft in a way. So they created a new version of Ethereum where the money was not stolen. So, and this is possible on blockchain, by the way. So you can't tamper with people's balances unless you do this kind of thing that's called a fork, where you actually create a new spin-off blockchain that's kind of a new database, right? And then you can change the initial parameters for this new database, and you can, in this way, that's the only way you can tamper with people's balances. I mean, creating a new one. So the first DAO was kind of a failure, but it was also very interesting, and it spawned many different ideas. Now, today we have dozens, I would say hundreds of different DAO softwares running around the blockchains, the different blockchains. And the hyphen one, that's called the DHO or the DO, is using the EOS.io blockchain. It's a spin-off of the EOS blockchain that's famous also and very, very powerful. The great thing about EOS.io is that it uses a different system for consensus. So it's not using mining. You don't need mining. So you use what is called the proof of stake, or actually the delegated proof of stake. That's the consensus mechanism for EOS.io. So it's so much more lightweight. The transactions are much faster. You don't need to kind of pay miners. Well, you are paying CPU and RAM for the contract as execution, or someone can pay for you, but the transaction costs are much smaller. So, and the transactions are super fast. So I would say this is what we call the third generation of blockchain, according to my count. And as was mentioned in the beginning, Holochain is the fourth generation because it uses a completely different approach altogether. So yeah, I don't know. I kind of introduced myself and then got ahead and start talking about the DHO. What I'd like to do is to do a kind of a small demo of the software and go through some of the screens and just show you guys what you can do on a do. And I don't have slides for today. I just wanted to actually show you guys the real thing. So so you can know what can be done there. Is that okay? Yeah, okay. All right, so let me share my screen here briefly here. All right, so that's the current version running right now of the Haifa DAO. I'm already logged in. I use the Anchor wallet for storing my keys here for the DAO. So actually, I'm using my Seeds account, which is also a blockchain account. That's this one. I'm logged in right here. You can see my profile here. And actually, yeah, I'm not gonna go deep yet on the profile. Just go, the first screen that I would like to show you guys is the contributions. So this is kind of the main place we come to do work when we go to the DAO. So we see which are the current proposals on the DAO, and we can vote on these proposals. So I can just click, for instance, I see this one proposal here. I can click on that to read it. And then it says, yeah, correcting the HO bug of incorrect Haifa evaluation. There is the description here, and supporting documentation, and the salary calculation can be on what we call Haifa USD is a token that's pegged to the USD. It's a kind of a stable token that's one-to-one to the USD. The H voice is the token for the governance. So we use that token to vote. So the more H voice I have, the more my vote counts into a decision. And Haifa token is the token for it's the kind of utility or equity token for Haifa. So it's how you measure my ownership of the company. So the more I work, the more I have US dollars, the more I have Haifa tokens, and the more I have H voice. So this is actually a single one-time contribution. So it's going to pay 876 Haifa tokens to use this guy here. And I like this proposal. You can see the other people's votes here. I like it, so I can click yes. And then it will open my Anchor wallet. I have to, of course, unlock it. Actually, my keyboard was missing, so I just unlock my wallet, and then I authorize and sign this transaction. So you can see it's a vote transaction. It will sign and then broadcast it to the chain, and then it's submitted. You can also see my vote yes here. And you can see if I sometimes I have to actually reload to see it over here. This is an issue with the current version of this software. And so I can, hold on. Yeah, so you can see my yes vote here. If you click it again, you see my vote here. It's a yes vote. I can vote yes, no, or abstain, right? And that's looking like most DAOs look like this, right? So this is the regular way for a DAO. You have proposals and people just vote. And then if in our case, we use 80% consensus. So if 80% of the voters approve some proposal, it's passing. And then we need a 20% quorum. So at least 20% of the voters of the voice in the company needs to vote for it to be approved. Otherwise, it's also not approved. So you see this one here is passing for Jason. So it's 100% endorsed with 23% voted. So it's green and green. So it's going to pass. I can also check the history here. There will be many different proposals in the past. But one of the key differences of the do is what we call role. So I can apply for a role, like, for instance, storytelling and communicating, B5, or facilitation and space holding, B3. So this B1 to B7 are the band, the salary band, kind of. So the higher the number, the more on the payment you get. And these are recurring payments. This is something that most DAOs don't, or most don't have yet. So it's a kind of a, when you want to apply to work on the company, you can apply for this role. So, and then you can see, for instance, my the current active assignments are here, 2 roles. You can see the people on roles. You can actually see myself here. Here I am. So I'm currently holding this DHO implementation liaison role. That's the person that's taking this implementation of the DHO to other organizations that want to start using the organization. So here's my description of the assignment, what people expect of me. And here's another key interesting point, the deferred amount. So when I start working, I choose how much I want to receive upfront payment and how much I want to defer. So when I defer some of my payment, I get some of that in US dollars and some of that in HIFA tokens. So HIFA tokens are valuable. They are going to be more valuable in the future if the company goes well. So this is the key difference. If I choose to defer more, I get less USD and more HIFA tokens. So that's the difference. And the voice is always similar to the amount of USD I would get. So I'm getting, every week I'm getting this much and this much voice and this much HIFA tokens. So we do lunar cycles. So every lunar phase, we get part of the compensation. So that's basically the main difference. And also the other thing that we have is called badges. We can assign badges to people and say, hey, so this is the badge proposals. I can see the current running badges. So for instance, tech support, mediator, facilitator, ambassador, lamplighter, so many different badges there. And you can see also, you can see the treasury here. That's another interesting screen. It takes a while to load. So whenever I receive a few HIFA USD tokens, I have to trade that for, actual cryptocurrencies that are accepted on exchanges. So I usually trade that for some maybe Bitcoins or EOS tokens that I can swap on my local exchanges here. So you can see the many requests for redemption here. So in this case, we do have someone that's converting the HIFA USD to actual crypto. So we have a financial flow circle. So that's the other key interesting part about HIFA. Besides being a DAO, we are also a self-organized organization. So we do have circles and roles. So each circle is basically holds a purpose, and then whoever works on that circle is serving under a role. So the role is not my role, but it's the role that's needed by the circle. And then when I want to apply to start working on another circle, I have to check if there is an existing role I can fill, or if I'm going to create a new role for myself, So These are the key differences. So all the decision making is done before submitting the proposal to the DAO. So each circle works asynchronously and they have different calls. Haifa is worldwide organization. So we have people, I'm from Brazil, for instance, we have people from all over the world, and we organize in these circles to do the decision making. And then when we have proposals that impact everyone, we send them to vote, to be voted on the DAO. Actually, some proposals are not, they don't even involve money. So for instance, I don't know if we have one here, an example. We have quests as well. Okay, this one is a strategy proposal. So you can see it has current zero value for everything. So it's zero value for dollars, for Haifa. So it's just a strategy. So do we want to go this path as the organization? And then there is a proposal. Usually it's a small one, and there is a following doc to give more details. And then people just vote if we want as an organization to move on that direction. So we can also use the DAO to decide on policies and strategy. So it's really powerful. And by the way, this is the old version of the DAO. We are currently working on what we call the multi-tenant DAO to allow more organizations to use the same tool. Because if you want to use it right now, you'd have to deploy your own tokens, deploy your own front end. So it's a lot of work. So what we're doing is we are creating a service to allow more organizations to start using the DAO. And this is what it looks like. This is actually live. You can see this is the test. Actually, let me go to the test environment. That has some stuff to show.
Yeah, while we're waiting for it to load, Julio, what makes the H in the do?
Oh,
And then
yeah.
also maybe if you could wrap up with sharing with us what will be the next generation blockchains, the holochains that you talked about. That is quite interesting for people to know. Like, we are in Web 2, we're going to Web 3, but then actually there's even another, like there's other people of the society already building on the future that comes after, which is super fascinating.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think it's not the dev server is probably down. Yeah, that's the worst about doing the demo live like this. But this is the production version under the preview screen, just to show you how it's going to look like. So you're going to see the proposals here. They are the UI is much more sleek, and it's ready for mobile as well, much more usable on mobile. So you can see your own profile here, your wallet, and you can see the proposals and click the proposal to vote. So the UI is much more user-friendly. You see the members here. And this organization screen is where we'll see the budget of the organization, the treasury. So it's much more, and the circles. So the circles are currently not part of the UI. So that's the question that you ask. What makes the H in the DHO? What is the human part of Haifa? So the answer to that is basically most DAOs, they suffer, they struggle because of the decision making. That's the key part. Where is the human of the organization? So how do you organize the decision making? And if you just do voting and no sense making or decision making first, you get into a lot of quarrels or struggle to distribute resources. And that's one of the issues that the initial DAOs had. So the difference and the point that we realize is that you can be trustless in that you don't rely on any middleman to do to concede your decisions. Like you when you vote for something, it's already enacted. But if you don't look at the trust levels between the humans, you don't have the organization usually falls apart, and that's the weak point. That's always boils down to humans behind every organization. So then Haifa decided to bring the humans back into the system. So how we do that is by integrating this self-organization practices, reinventing organizations. So we use a modified version of holacracy. So we have circles, we have roles, and each circle has their own decision-making process going on. We have facilitators. So, and then we reflect some of that structure in the DHO, and then the new versions are reflecting even more. So you will be able to see the circles, who belongs to each of the circles, what are the circles up to. So the organization stops being one single, block and becomes many different circles that are alive. You can actually be part of many circles. You don't have to be on only one circle. So you can contribute based on what your purpose brings you to contribute. So you actually integrate the human intelligence, collective intelligence in this beautiful way of kind of organic way of seeing how the organization evolves. So that's the key difference is we're not only giving you a tool to manage resources, we're actually giving you a tool to manage your purpose, how to evolve your organization in a dynamic and organic way. So that's the main difference.
That's super cool. And also, like, I've been in touch with a few members of your community. Basil actually made the connection, and with unit, we've been like always in close interaction with the Seeds community. So I'm very like supportive, knowing that, like, what you guys are preaching, you are actually putting into words by the people who represent it. So that's really nice to see that it's not only a vision, but something that is actually already put into action. What about the holochain concept? And once we've understood that, then let's wrap up the session with the 1, 2 key takeaways so that the audience can go away and feel a bit grounded and sorted. Because sometimes, like, it blows the mind and then people are not really understanding where to look next.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. Well, holochain is a new blockchain technology that's emerging, and I was starting the Brazilian holochain community here, and I actually worked with the holochain team for 6 to 8 months, I guess, developing for them also, and was an incredible experience. So basically, the main difference is that most blockchains are data centric. They have one big chain that contains all the information, and that's the consensus holding all this information together. It's almost like one big database, decentralized, distributed database, but it's, in the end of the day, it's a database. So it contains, of course, it's immutable, so you can't tamper, you can't change what happened in the database, and it's always transparent. Everyone can see what's going on, and it's encrypted. It's super secure because of that. But the issue is, well, if you have to buy a cup of coffee in Europe, you have to let the whole planet know that you are going to buy this cup of coffee with Bitcoin or with some blockchain. And then you have to propagate this information through the many consensus generating nodes. And all of them have to validate that you really can buy a cup of coffee in Europe. And so it's a lot of effort to validate one small transaction, right? So, and that's what holochain is here to do differently. So instead of having one big center of data, like one database, you have agents. So every agent has their own source chain. That's almost like a mini chain that's on your own agent has, and only your own agent has. So if I'm going to do a transaction with you, I would look at your chain and you would look at my chain, and we would cross-check our chains and validate using the many validation algorithms in Holochain to validate that. And then if we don't see any issues, we can cross-sign that, and then we can propagate this information to whoever nodes care about us. So you don't have to propagate that to the whole network. Well, eventually, if you are an agent that's very important for the network, most of the network agents will know about you. But if you're not, then you only need a few agents to actually hold a copy of your chain. So you don't need to hold that many copies over and over to every node. So it's much faster. It's at least 10,000 times faster than Ethereum. And it's much more lightweight because each agent only has to carry what they care about. And it also enables smart contracts and apps, and different kinds of currencies can be developed, like mutual currencies. And yeah, so it's very different because it doesn't even require a consensus for most of the operations. So if you can buy like a cup of coffee on the beach without network access, actually, you can just do a transaction between me and another agent on the beach. Of course, we are talking about a few dollars transaction. If I want to do a $10 million transaction on the beach without network connectivity, I wouldn't do that. I would wait to do that while we have more validators, more agents to validate that. So depending on the amount of funds that are being transacted, you may require more agents to sign your transaction to validate that. So you kind of build the consensus based on the amount of security that you actually want for the operation. So this is a very quick summary. I mean, there's so much more into it. I just don't want to go too much deeper into that so we don't lose the center of discussion that's around DAOs and, you know, decision making. And I really want to answer actually some questions from the chat.
Yeah, we
So
had a question.
Yeah, hopefully that introduction was enough to spike your interest. I mean, because Holochain is really cool. I mean, it's one of the coolest blockchains that's emerging. It went through some difficulties launching. It's taking longer than expected, but it's really cool. I mean, if you want to know more, you can also ask me. And yeah. So let's go to questions then.
Two questions. I think the first one is how are DAOs actually regulated? Yeah, are they legal entities or completely in the nowhere?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I mean, up to a few months ago, there was no regulation altogether. I mean, and then we currently are seeing some efforts on regulation coming up from especially Wyoming in the US came up with what they call the DAO LLC. So they have a regulation to allow the DAO to be recognized as an LLC company on the US. And that actually raised a lot of eyes from people spiking interests around DAOs. And so they can be actually, Haifa now has an LLC contract. So we are becoming under regulation. But essentially, the organization lives on the blockchain. So no government can decide, you know, what you will do or not. Of course, if you don't abide to the government, eventually they could cause harm. I mean, you still have to pay taxes if you're doing services around the world according to the local regulation. The blockchain I mean, it doesn't require that, but if the government requires, you can always do the calculation of the token value up to the local currency value and then pay taxes based on that transacted amount. So, this is all very new. I mean, a few years ago, and the regulation and the government regulations are I mean, picking up the pace to actually try to regulate that. But essentially, you could, run your own DAO as a bunch of friends, organizing resources, or if you want to bring your big company into the DAO or space, you would also have the legal body of the organization interacting with the local government, but you could have the DAO tool as a tool to help you give transparency and visibility to your shareholders. So there are many different ways it can be done.
Yeah, and what happens with the offboarding when team members decide they don't want to be part of the DAO anymore, or are occupying a task or a role that they actually don't really work on? How do DAOs or do's actually work with that?
Yeah, that's a very important question and very hard to answer. So right now on Haifa, the do, what we have is we have the voice token and the Haifa token. So the Haifa token is your ownership of the organization. So, and the Haifa token currently can be minted. So there are some specific circumstances when, for instance, when I do work for Haifa, my Haifa tokens that I earn are minted. So I kind of am diluting a little bit all the other investors when I do work. So eventually, if you don't do a lot, and if you stay only with the few tokens that you had, you can be slowly diluted to and lose value for that, or you can sell the Haifa tokens if you want. But the other tokens that are not transferable are the voice tokens, the Haifa voice tokens. So they are not transferable, of course, because if I could transfer my voice tokens to someone permanently, I would transfer my reputation as well. So that's dangerous, right? Just someone that arrived into Haifa, I could get millions of voice and start doing all the decisions. So that's harmful, and we don't want that. So what we have is what we call voice decay. So if you don't use your voice for too long, it starts to decay. There is an algorithm. All the voice holders will start to lose voice. Eventually, I think it's after 2 years, all your voice is gone if you don't contribute to Haifa anymore. So, but actually to be in a role is different. So the circle has autonomy to decide who is up to stay on a role or not. So you can be a Haifa token holder and have voice, but you can be not in a role. So you're still participating in the global decisions of the do, but you're not participating in the circle level decisions if you don't have a role. So, and then the role has autonomy to say that each role lasts for 3 months, the assignment. So after 3 months, the circle may or may not decide to renew that role. So if they decide to not renew the role, then the person is no longer at the role, and they have to, I mean, they can still submit proposals to allocate the resources if they want, like contributions, or even submit to start on another role if they want, but then it has to be voted by one of the circles to approve that person to actually continue doing work. So hopefully that cleared out.
Yeah, wow. Like, it's just mesmerizing, really, that now we have these kinds of technologies and incentive systems mirrored by the token to help bring holacracy or more autonomous human decision making into manifestation. Thank you very much for being with us today. Like, this was really, really beautiful, and I'm pretty convinced we are really at the cutting edge frontier of what is there to come all together here. And I'm so excited that we have 25 decision makers here in the room who can shape that new economy because they know what is there to be and then can think about what to build on it. So Julio, you created great value for the community by just sharing and inspiring and helping us build understanding. Thanks a lot, and hope to be in contact very soon.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure to be here. And if you have more questions or anyone wants to keep the discussion, you can reach me on Discord. I think that Ipo will share my contacts as well. So yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. And also, you are all very welcome to come over to the World Solana Forum that is happening right now. We currently have a session on DeFi for beginners using some of the DeFi tools built on the Solana ecosystem and some more critical perspectives around it. We do that, Julio, to like, share and gather knowledge and help participants understand using one use case of what is actually all there in the same way you helped us learn about DAOs today. Thanks everyone and see you around soon.
Thank you.